Section 68 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 1. Introduction to the Paradiso. Invocation of Apollo. Ascent through the sphere of fire. The order of the universe.
The glory of him who moveth everything penetrates all the universe, and shines more brightly in one part, and elsewhere less. Within the heaven which most receives his light I was, and saw what he who thence descends neither knows how, nor hath the power to tell. For as it draweth near to its desire, our intellect so deeply sinks therein, that recollection cannot follow it. As much, however, of the holy realm as in my memory I could treasure up, shall now become the subject of my song. O good Apollo, for my final task make me as worthy a vessel of thy power as thou dost ask for thy dear laurel's gift. One of Parnassus's peaks hath hitherto sufficed me, but with both of them I now must start upon the course which still remains. Enter my breast and breathe thou as of old thou didst, when from the scabbard of his limbs thou drewest Marsyas forth. O power divine, if thou but lend thyself to me so much, that I may show the blessed kingdom's shadow which in my mind is stamped, to thy dear tree thou'lt see me come, and crown me with the leaves my theme and thou shall cause me to deserve. So seldom, Father, are there any picked to grace a Caesar's or a poet's triumph, the fault of human wills, and to their shame, that his Penean leaf should bring forth joy within the joyous Delphic deity, when for itself it causes one to thirst. A great flame follows from a little spark. Perhaps with better voices after me shall men so pray that Sirrah will reply. For mortal men the lantern of the world rises through diverse passes, but from that which with 3 crosses brings 4 rings together, it issues on a more propitious course, and in conjunction with a kinder star, and more in its own image moulds and seals the mundane wax. A pass almost like this had made it morning there and evening here, and all that hemisphere was white and black the other side, when Beatrice I saw turned toward her left and looking at the sun. No eagle ever gazed at it so keenly, and even as from the first a second ray is wont to come and upward start again, as would a pilgrim longing to return, even so to her act, by mine eyes infused through my imagination, mine conformed, and on the sun I gazed beyond our wont. Much is permitted there which is not here allowed our faculties, thanks to the sight created as the human race's home. Not long did I endure it, nor so briefly as not to see it sparkle all around, as molten iron doth, when out of fire it issues boiling. Day then all at once seemed joined to day, as if the one who can had with another sun adorned the sky. With eyes fixed wholly on the eternal wheels stood Beatrice, and I on her fixed mine, from there above removed. Looking at her, I such became within as Glaucus did on tasting of the herb which in the sea made him a fellow of the other gods. Transhumanizing could not be expressed by words. Let this case, therefore, him suffice, for whom grace holds experience in reserve. If I, O love that rulest heaven, was only that part of me which thou didst last create, thou know'st that with thy light didst raise me up. When the rotation thou, by being longed for, dost make eternal, drew me to itself by harmonies distributed and tuned by thee, it seemed that so much of the sky was by the sun's flame set on fire, that rain nor river ever made so broad a lake. The newness of the sound and brilliant light kindled in me a wish to know their cause, never with so great keenness felt, when she, who saw me even as I behold myself, opened her mouth to calm my troubled mind, ere I did mine to question, and began.
With false imagining dost thou so dull thyself that thou perceivest not what else thou wouldst perceive if thou hadst thrown it off. Thou art not on earth, as thou dost think thyself, but lightning fleeing from its proper place ne'er ran as thou, that art thereto returning.
If I was by her little smiled-out words of my first doubt relieved, Within a new one was I the more ensnared. I therefore said, already sated, I had found repose from great amazement, but I wonder now how I can these light elements transcend. Heaving thereat a pitying sigh, she turned her eyes upon me with the look a mother gives her delirious child, and then began.
All things, whate'er they be, an order have among themselves, and form this order is, which makes the universe resemble God. Therein exalted creatures see the trace of that eternal worth, which is the end for which the mentioned order is created. Within the ordered state whereof I speak, all natures have their place with different lots, as near to their source they are, or less, wherefore toward different ports they wend their way through the vast sea of being, which endowed with instinct granted it to bear it on. This instinct toward the moon impelleth fire. This is the motive force in mortal hearts. This binds together and unites the earth. Nor doth this bow impel those creatures only which lack intelligence, but those that have intelligence and love. The providence which ordereth all this, with its own light e'er calms the heaven, inside of which revolves the one that moveth with the greatest speed. And thither now, as to a place ordained, that bowstring's power is bearing us along, which to a glad mark speeds whate'er it shoots. 'Tis true that, as a form is frequently discordant with the intention of an art, because its matter in response is deaf, so likewise from this natural course at times a creature turns away, for power it hath, though thus impelled, to bend aside elsewhere, as one may see fire falling from a cloud, if by false pleasure drawn, that primal impulse turn it aside to earth. If well I judge, no further shouldst thou wonder at thy rising than at a stream thou dost, which to its foot down from a lofty mountain's top descends. As great a marvel would it be in thee, if, rid of hindrance, thou hadst sat thee down, as rest on earth would in a living flame.
Then toward the sky she turned her face again.
End of Paradiso, Canto 1. Section 69 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 2. The first heaven, the moon, reflected happiness, inconstant spirits who failed to keep their vows.
O ye, who in a little boat embarked, have, fain to listen, followed in the wake of this my ship, which, singing, ploughs ahead, go back to see your shores again, start not upon the ocean, for if me ye lost, ye might perhaps be left behind astray. The seas I sail were never crossed before. Minerva breathes, Apollo is my guide, and all 9 muses point me out the bears. Ye other few, who early raised your necks for angels' bread, on which one here on earth subsists, but with which none are ever sated, ye may well start your vessel on the deep salt sea, if in the furrow of my ship ye stay, ere smooth again the waves become. Those glorious ones who crossed the seas to Colchis were not so much amazed as ye shall be when Jason turned a ploughman they beheld. The innate and ceaseless thirsting for the realm in God's own image made was bearing us as swiftly as ye see the heavens revolve. On high looked Beatrice, and I on her, and in the time, perhaps, an arrow takes to light and fly, and from the notch be freed, I saw that I had come to where a marvel turned to itself my sight. Hence she, from whom the working of my mind could not be hid, as glad as she was lovely, turned toward me, and said,
Direct thy grateful mind to God, who with the first star hath united us.
Meseemed as if a cloud were covering us, as luminous and dense, as hard and polished, as is a diamond smitten by the sun. Within itself the eternal pearl received us, as water, though unbroken it remain, receives within itself a ray of light. If body I was, nor can one here conceive how one dimension could endure another, which needs must be if body enter body, the more should we be kindled by the wish that essence to behold, wherein is seen how once with God our nature was conjoined. There will be seen what here we hold by faith, not demonstrated, but will self-known be, as is the primal truth which men believe. My lady, I replied, as best I can do I devoutly render thanks to him, who from the mortal world hath severed me. But tell me what this body's dark spots are, which cause the folk down yonder on the earth to tell each other fables about Cain. She smiled a little, then she said,
If mortal's opinion therein errs, where key of sense unlocketh not, surely the shafts of wonder ought not to pierce thee now, for thou perceivest that short are reason's wings when following sense. But tell me what thou thinkest thereof thyself.
And I, what seems to us diverse up here is caused, I think, by bodies thin and dense. And she,
Thou'lt surely see that thy belief is sunk in error, if but well thou heed the arguments thou now oppose to it. The eighth sphere shows you many shining stars, which both in quality and magnitude may be observed to differ in their looks. If only rarity and density caused this, among them all one single virtue would more and less and equally be shared. Virtues that differ needs must be the fruit of formal principles, and these save one would, by thy way of reasoning, be destroyed. Again, if thinness caused the dusky spots which thou dost ask about, this planet would, in portions, through its bulk its matter lack. Or, as a body what is fat and lean distributes, so would this one alternate its volumes leaves. If true the former were, 'twould in the sun's eclipses be revealed, because the latter's light would then shine through, as when in other thin things introduced. This does not happen. Hence the other one must be considered now. And should I chance to quash it, false will thy opinion prove. If, therefore, it be so that this thin part extends not through, a limit there must be, beyond which what is contrary thereto allows it not to pass. The other's ray is, hence, reflected, as colour from a glass returns, which back of it concealeth lead. Thou'lt now say that the ray seems dimmer there than in the other parts it is, because from further back reflected. From this retort experimenting, which is wont to be the fountain of the rivers of your arts, can, if thou ever try it, set thee free. Thou'lt take 3 mirrors, 2 of them removed at equal distance from thee, let the third, placed 'tween them, more remotely meet thine eyes. Then, turning toward them, let a lamp stand so between them as to shine upon all 3, and be reflected on thee from them all. Though the most distant light will not extend so much in quantity, thou'lt see thereby how it must needs with equal brightness shine. And now, as at the stroke of burning rays, what lies beneath the snow is wholly bared of what were previously its cold and colour. Thee, thus remaining in thine intellect, will I inform with such a living light that it will quiver when thou seest it. Within the heaven of peace divine revolves a body, subject to whose influence lies the being of whatever it contains. The next, which hath so many eyes, distributes that being among the different essences, distinguished from it and contained by it. The other spheres, by various differences, dispose to their effects and causes those distinctions which within themselves they have. These organs of the world so go their way, as thou perceivest now, from grade to grade, that from above they take and downward act. Give me good heed, as through this argument I seek the truth thou wishest, that henceforth thou mayest know how to cross the ford alone. The holy circle's influence and motion, as from the blacksmith doth the hammer's art, must from the blessed motors be inspired. And that heaven which so many lights adorn receives its impress from the mind profound which turneth it, and makes thereof a seal. And as the soul which lives within your dust unfolds itself through members which are different, and unto different potencies conformed, so likewise, multiplied among the stars, doth that intelligence unfold its goodness, while on its unity itself revolves. Each different power a different alloy makes, mixed with the precious body which it quickens, and with which it unites, as life in you. Because of that glad nature whence it flows, the mingled virtue through the body shines, as, through a living pupil, joy. From this comes what 'tween light and light different seems, and not from rarity and density. This is the formal principle which makes, according to its strength, things dark and bright.
End of Paradiso Canto 2. Section 70 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso Canto 3. The first heaven, the moon, reflected happiness, inconstant spirits who failed to keep their vows.
That sun which erst had warmed my heart with love, by proving and refuting, had revealed to me the pleasing face of lovely truth. And I, in order to confess myself corrected and assured, lifted my head as high as utterance of assent required. But that I might behold it, there appeared a sight which to itself so closely held me that my confession I remembered not. Even as from polished or transparent glasses, or waters clear and still, but not so deep that wholly lost to vision is their bed, the features of our faces are returned so faintly that upon a pallid brow a pearl comes no less faintly to our eyes. Thus saw I many a face that longed to speak. I therefore ran into the fault opposed to that which kindled love 'tween man and fount. As soon as I became aware of them, supposing they were mirrored images, to find out whose they were I turned mine eyes, and seeing nothing, back again I turned them straight on into the light of my sweet guide, whose holy eyes were glowing as she smiled.
Be not surprised,
she said,
that I should smile at what is childish in thy present thought, since on the truth it trusts not yet its foot, but, as its wont is, turneth thee in vain. Real substances are these whom thou perceivest, assigned here for a vow not wholly kept. Speak to them, then, and hear them, and believe. For from itself the true light which contents them permits them not to turn their feet away.
and I addressed me to the shade which seemed most eager to converse, and I began, like one confounded by too great desire. O well-created spirit, that in rays of life eternal dost that sweetness taste, which never is untasted, understood, 'twill grateful be to me, if thou content me with thine own name, and thy companion's lot. Hence promptly, and with laughing eyes, she said,
Not otherwise doth our love lock its doors against a just desire, than that love doth who wills that all his court be like himself. A virgin sister was I in the world, and if within itself thy mind look well, my being fairer will not hide me from thee. But thou wilt recognize that I'm Picarda, who placed here with these other blessed ones, am happy in the slowest moving sphere. Our wishes, which are only set on fire by that which is the Holy Spirit's pleasure, rejoice in that our joy was willed by him, and this allotment which appears so low, is therefore given to us, because our vows neglected were, and not completely kept.
Hence I to her, in these your wondrous faces there shines I know not what that is divine, which from your old appearance changes you. Hence in remembering you I was not quick. But what thou now dost tell me helps me so, that I more easily recall thy face. But tell me, ye who here so happy are ye desirous of a higher place, that ye may see more friends, or make you more? First with those other shades she smiled a little, and then replied to me so joyously, that she appeared to burn with love's first fire.
Brother, love's virtue sets our will at rest, and makes us wish for only what we have, and doth not make us thirsty for aught else. If higher we desired to be, our wishes would be discordant with the will of him who here discerneth us, which, thou wilt see, can in these circles not occur, if love be necessary to existence here, and if love's nature thou consider well. Nay more, essential to this blessed life it is, that we should be within the will divine, whereby our wills become one will, and so, even as we are from grade to grade throughout this realm, to all the realm is pleasing as to its king, who in his will in-wills us, and his will is our peace, and that the ocean is, whereunto moveth all that it creates, and all that nature makes.
Clear was it then to me that everywhere in heaven is paradise, and yet the grace of good supreme reigns there in many ways. But as it happens that if one food sate, and longing for another still remain, for one we ask, and one decline with thanks, even thus with word and act did I, to learn from her what was the nature of the web, whose shuttle she drew not unto its end.
High worth and perfect life in heaven,
she said,
a lady higher up here, in whose rule the robe and veil are worn, that till death come, both watch and sleep they may beside that spouse, who every vow accepts, which love conforms to that which pleases him. To follow her, when I was but a girl I fled the world, and in her habit clothing me, I promised that I would keep within her order's path. Thereafter men more used to ill than good out of that pleasant cloister dragged me forth, and God knows what my life was after that. This other splendor also, which reveals itself to thee upon my right, and glows with all the radiance of this sphere of ours, takes to herself what of myself I say. A nun she was, and likewise from her head the shadow of the sacred veils was torn. But when she, too, was brought back to the world against her wishes and against good usage, she never from the heart's veil freed herself. This is the splendor of the great Costanza, who by the second wind of Suabia gave the third and final power birth.
She thus addressed me, and thereat Ave Maria began to sing, and singing disappeared, as through deep water heavy objects do. Mine eyes, which followed after her as far as it was possible, on losing her, back to the mark of greater longing turned, and unto Beatrice reverted wholly. But she so flashed upon me as I gazed, that first my sight endured it not, and this the slower made me in my questioning.
End of Paradiso, Canto 3.